Welcome back to Real Talk with Closer Control, the show where we sit down with real investors doing real deals and talk about what exactly is happening in the market right now. So it's just honest stories, smart systems, and the wins and losses that actually shape the journey. Today, I'm joined by Reid Rueca, an investor who's been making serious moves in the wholesaler as well as disposition space. So if you guys are ready, let's get right to it. So thank you so much for being with us here today. Reid, can you briefly give a small introduction about yourself and your journey in the real estate as well as investing market?
Thank you for having me, Dion. So my name's Reid. I'm 19 years old. I'm the youngest of the 5 Rueca brothers. And in our real estate business and our real estate company, my position is purely just head of acquisitions, or my role is to just manage and train all of our cold callers and acquisition specialists, as well as take care of all of our marketing. And then I'm also the primary closer when it comes to the acquisition side.
That's pretty great to hear, Reid. And what markets are you working on right now? Is it just acquisitions, or are you expanding into other markets as well?
Yeah, so right now I'm purely acquisitions, and the markets that we're in is Savannah, Knoxville, Tennessee, Augusta, Georgia, and then as well Lakeland, Florida. And we're looking to expand into another market, try to maybe put some cold callers in another market, see if we can find some gold in other markets and kind of reverse wholesale things. So typically how we will find new markets is that instead of just buying a list and just going straight into it and cold calling into it, we'll reverse wholesale it and actually find the buyers first, see if it's worth a market to go into. And once we find the right market with the right buyers, then we start the acquisition systems.
That's pretty good to hear. Let's say from the market insights, are you seeing some trends which are different from today's market compared to last year? Is it a lot of buyers in the market right now? Is it like a seller's market?
Yeah, right now, the current market is very, very different from the previous years. I would say right now is the hardest time to get into real estate, purely just because there are so many amateur wholesalers or amateur investors in the real estate space that take up so much space. Luckily, it honestly helps us more advanced investors because we can actually use them to our advantage and prove our worth to the sellers. So a lot of times I'll come by a lot of sellers that say, oh, I'm not looking for this, or I want a contract that does this. And they know a lot about real estate because they've been, taken advantage of by amateur investors. So I'm able to kind of wiggle my way around, make sure they understand the entire process. And once I get them to understand the entire process, it's just smooth sailing from there.
I mean, that's good. So tough market.
Oh, yeah.
What would you say would be the biggest opportunity? You said the market is tough, but then obviously, even if it is tough, there would be opportunity for seasoned sellers, right? Seasoned investors. So what would you say would be the biggest opportunity right now in the current real estate market landscape?
That is a good question. I'd probably say the biggest opportunity right now getting into the real estate space is using hard money lending. There's different types of ways that you can, purchase a home in real estate. There's wholesaling, there's flipping, there's buy and holding, and there's also hard money lending, where basically you find a home for super, super cheap. Then, you don't have the capital to actually invest in the home and, fix the home or just put it back on the market. So what some people will do, and sometimes we do, is we'll take on a home at a super deep discount and then go to another person, use their money to fund the project, and then just put it back on the market. And we never even had to touch it. So I would probably say that's the base opportunity right now, is just hard money lending. It's just a matter of finding, the right hard money lender as well as the right opportunity to actually use the strategy. Mm-hmm. But I would say right now, in such a saturated market when it comes to wholesaling, hard money lending is like a little piece of gold that's just kind of sitting there. That's a big opportunity for a lot of different people.
Oh, wow. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people does not even know about this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, I'm pretty sure you would have a proper system, right? Especially when it comes to handling this lead generation as well as follow-ups. Can you please elaborate a little bit more about your current system?
Yeah, right now, we're using closer control. And man, does it save me so much time, Dion. You don't understand. The first thing is the follow-up game. It's probably one of the hardest things, part of the real estate business, is just continuously following up because, I'll get really, really motivated sellers, but it turns out, oh, it's going through probate. Oh, it's going through this. Oh, it's going through that. So I can't sell right now. So rather than me just putting it on a note and saying, oh, call this person in a month, call this person a month, call that person. I have the system literally text for me, giving me reminders, making sure that I'm doing all the right things. And then as well as, emailing too. So not only is it texting, not only is it calling, not only is it reminding, but it's just making sure that everything's organized. And then as well as the feature that I love most is simply just the follow-up due date. Whenever I have a seller that says, I'm not ready to sell until June because that's when my tenant lease is up, I'll then put on the follow-up due date, June 2nd. And once June 2nd comes, gives me a notification. I know exactly when to call. And not only does it help with just following up, it also helps me track all of my cold callers and all of my acquisition specialists, making sure they're doing their work, making sure they're putting in the right numbers, and just making sure that all the data is making sense. Not only is it good for tracking my cold callers and also doing follow-ups and just taking care of all my leads, but it's also really good for KPIs, getting everything down to a science.
Pretty good to hear. If you're just starting out in the real estate market again, would you say this is a one particular area you would like to systemize from day one, or is there any particular other area which you would like to focus on more?
If I were to start from day one, I would probably suggest working in your backyard, because it's difficult, especially a lot of times when you're getting into real estate. You don't have a lot of capital. So you may not have the capital or the money to buy a list and cold call into them. You may not have the capital to, just go straight into PPC or PPLs. So I would suggest just go door knocking. Well, my brother Connor, when he first started the real estate business, for the first 7 months, my brother would literally drive around our city in Riverside and just find every single distressed home, mark them down, and then, call them. But there's simpler ways. Rather than him driving, he could have just used Google Maps. There's other systems that you can use, but I would say start in your backyard. It's as simple as that. Just make it super simple. I think that's the number one thing that people get wrong when it comes to starting a business. They think that they need to know 100%. But I always tell all my acquisition guys, you only need to know 70%. Once you know 70%, you can start taking action. And once you take action is when you learn the rest of the 100%.
I think that's the first time I'm hearing that advice, but that makes so much sense right now. How long have you been in this space right now in the real estate market?
I've been in the real estate market for around 2 years now.
That's great. And what would you say would be one of the most biggest success or biggest deal which you have encountered during your time in the market? I mean, just like a ballpark range, just for our viewers.
The biggest deal that I have worked on was actually a wholetail deal. So I'll kind of go through it. It was a PPL lead, and I had called into her right when it got into our system, and I just qualified her, just tried to get to know the situation because she was in a pretty distressed situation. She needed to sell the home super, super quick because she was going through some debt issues, and luckily the home was pretty renovated. And she was in such deep distress that she was willing to sell at such a big discount. And then I brought it back to my brothers. They said, oh my goodness, Reid, this is a crazy deal that we have here. You got to make sure you close that. So I'm going crazy. I'm like, oh my goodness, I've only been in the real estate space for a couple months. And I'm like, this is my first big deal. And so many things are going through my mind. And I simply just, prepare, get my script ready. I give her a call and I close it. And we find out that the best exit strategy for this one isn't actually wholesaling, it's wholetailing. So wholetailing is basically where you purchase the property and then you just instantly put it onto the MLS and on the market. And from that deal, we made around $50,000 for that deal, and it was in Savannah. And it was crazy because I was only in the space for a couple months. God had blessed me with this amazing deal. And then we held on to the property for a long time because it wasn't the right time. It wasn't the right market. The market wasn't in the right stage where we wanted to sell. So we actually waited until, summer came along. Then we put it on the market, sold it, and then used those proceeds to, just finance the business as well as just hire more cold callers and, do all the systems and operations for our business.
That's pretty good. I mean, considering the fact that you just started out, that's a pretty good deal.
It was crazy. It was I want to say I was 3 months into just training to be a closer because Connor was like my original coach. I was like a freshman in a college. I was a first year. And Connor's like, you're ready to be on the dials. I was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm confident taking on anything. And Connor starts training me. I start getting on the dials. I start taking calls more seriously. And then I start becoming a closer. And I just get rejected one after the other. And then 3 months in, I get this crazy deal. And it literally just like changed my life as well as just like my perspective on business.
That's amazing to hear. So one last question, Reid. To someone starting out in the real estate market space, what would be the one piece of advice you would like to give them?
I'd probably say first, success loves speed. And second, the simpler, the better. And for success loves speed, the reason I say that is because especially in the real estate space, people have such a short attention span. And you have X amount of minutes, even to seconds, that if you don't make it in that window, you're not going to close the deal. You're going to lose the deal, and they're simply just going to go to someone else who's faster. And as well as for being as simple as possible, confused sellers do not sell. I can propose the most complicated thing to a person, and as long as I make it simple and they can understand it, they will always go with me rather than someone else who has a simpler strategy, but makes it more complicated, if that makes sense. So just keep things simple. Make sure the seller or whoever you're talking to knows what you're talking about. Be transparent. So when, the stages of closing comes along, there's no troubles, there's no questions, and they fully understand exactly what's going on.
That's a pretty good advice for a lot of young people starting out in the market space. I think that's enough questions from my side, Reid. Join us next week where we come up with a new investor, where we share new stories and new updates about what's exactly happening in the real estate market. Till then, thank you so much for being with us. Talk to you all guys soon. Bye.